So I recently did a video going through my issues with the currently available OLED options. In that video, I told you I had a potential fix for the QD-OLED text fringing issues, which is one of the major deal breakers for me with this panel technology. And today, I'm going to go through what that fix is so that you can use your QD-OLEDs for productivity without the eye strain or the ridiculous text fringing that you see on these types of displays. And I have to stress that this is not for anybody using WOLED, tandem OLED, or any of the newer non-triangle RGB QD-OLED displays that are going to be coming out. So if you're watching this video in the future, this is meant for anybody using a 4th generation QD-OLED display or earlier. Now, I want to stress that if you're the kind of person who doesn't see the color fringing at all, or if you see it, you don't care about it, if you're only using these displays for media consumption or gaming, that's great. I made this for myself, and I'm sharing it with you guys now in the hopes that this solves it for you too. And no, this is not MacType, neither is it Better ClearType. MacType and Better ClearType don't actually fix the core problem, which is the unconventional subpixel layout, the triangle RGB subpixel layout of these displays. And I know folks are going to say, isn't this a problem to do with Windows and ClearType only? And there's actually a video by Monitors Unboxed that kind of goes into this a bit, and I recommend that video, but I think there's also a bit of confusion about this because while it's true that ClearType and Windows are a problem for text rendering on triangle RGB QD-OLED displays, the bigger problem is actually the display itself. You can see color fringing on static elements that are high contrast, even for things that are not text. And so even if you implement grayscale, you can still see color fringing on grayscale text because that's a high contrast static situation. So to a certain eye, grayscale text or like what you can do with MacType might not be as bad, but I personally find that it's not actually a solution and it just makes the text overall look not as good as what you get with ClearType. And some people are saying disable ClearType entirely. It's like, what? Have you tried that? That's terrible. So what this is an application that I've put together through the help of the dystopian present that we live in today. And I'll leave that in the description below. And this is a way to compensate for the color fringing that exists on text. And you're going to have to make the adjustments that are appropriate for how you see the text. So linked in the description is an application, and you'll get a notification here saying this is a sketchy download file from a random YouTuber, and it is. You can actually make this program yourself, and I recommend doing that. I'm sure there's better ways of doing this even, but I've gotten this to be so that text on my OLED looks just as good as it does on my IPS 4K display right next to it. So this fringe shift application is effectively a GPU-based compositing layer that runs on top of the finished screen image. And that sounds complicated, but think of it like this. It's using your GPU to basically correct the fringing that you see on text. It grabs the already rendered frame and then just applies an offset to the color channels. So here's an example of text fringing on a QD-OLED display where you can visibly see the fringes at the bottom and the top and kind of throughout the sides as well, but there's that pink fringe on the bottom and a green fringe on the top, and for me that's the most obvious and annoying fringe. And here it is corrected with fringe shift. Now, there's still always going to be some tiny little fringing here and there, just again due to the nature of this subpixel layout. I don't think it's possible to get this to be like perfect, but to the naked eye, it ends up being pretty darn close to how this looks on my IPS display. So here's that same bit of text on the 4K IPS display. Here's the default QD-OLED display, and here it is corrected with fringe shift. You can see that it's made quite a bit of improvement to the fringing issue. And again, to me, this is enough where I can use this without getting any eye strain, without feeling annoyed or frustrated, like I'm looking at fuzzy text or text with onion rings around it or something weird like that. Now, here's the crucial thing with this application, and it took me a while to get this to not suck. This does use a little bit of your GPU resource, which means that when you're in games, you probably want to turn this off. You definitely want to turn this off and then turn it back on when you're looking at text. Now, what you might also notice is that when you're scrolling, you will see a little bit more GPU usage. And that's because it's rendering that layer on top of everything. And so when you're changing lots of things in that render, your GPU is going to be made use of. So as I said in the previous video, this is not a fix that is like a free lunch, right? There is a little bit of cost to this. And again, crucially, make sure you disable this when you're in game. This will reduce your performance for sure. But I find at least when in game, the color fringing isn't something I'm overly distracted by. I just want to run through with you what you have to do to make this work. So for this system, there is a test pattern. And this will help you identify where the fringing is. I'm sure that this could have been done better, but this is just what I came up with. And it's just a bunch of vertical lines and a bunch of horizontal lines. And so when you're adjusting this, I suggest tackling the green Y and red Y sliders first and sliding them to where you can't see those fringes anymore, and then start to look at the horizontal ones, because the vertical ones, at least for me, are more obvious and they're more noticeable. And again, on this display, you'll have to kind of figure out which ones are the strongest for you. There are some sharpening filters that I added as well to this. When I first put this together, the text had this kind of blurry effect to it, and it's because it wasn't actually being rendered correctly. It was kind of a bug. So while I was able to get the text to actually look good, I further tinkered with this to make it so that that blurriness bug wasn't actually occurring anymore. So I don't think that the sharpness is actually really needed, but I just left it in there in case folks want to use it. I actually don't recommend using the QD-OLED Triad preset. I found I had much better luck actually going in manually and making the adjustments to the different sliders. Again, I only have one panel here that I'm testing this with, so if there's other panels that do things a little bit differently, you may have different results. The one last thing I want to note here is that while I was able to get my QD-OLED display to have text that is more than acceptable, like basically as good as what it looks on my regular IPS display, there is still that kind of OLED glow effect. This doesn't fix that. It still has it. It's just the color fringing. And also, if you're using one of these Asus displays, I recommend messing around with Vivid Pixel, because you may find that reducing Vivid Pixel makes the whole thing easier on the eyes. Again, when looking at white text on a black background or white text on a dark background. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. I hope it's helpful. For me, it's made it so that I can use this QD-OLED display, at least until the new 4K 27-inch RGB stripe displays are commonly available, and we can figure out if those ones have any problems. Because yeah, I don't want to have to go through this again. But as always, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.